Ladies and gentlemen, it's no secret I do not like the Australian government, and I don't like the Liberal Party or the Labor Party. I don't like Anthony Albanese. I don't like whatever puppets underneath him. I don't like Susan Lee. I don't like whatever puppets are underneath her. I don't like Angus Taylor. Anyway, I don't really want to talk about that. I'm riled up. This is one of the stupidest things that I've ever seen the Australian government even think of doing. If you haven't heard, the Australian government recently had an audit of all defence sites and defence portfolio assets in terms of property, which is around 3 million hectares, which is huge, probably more than most countries. And they've identified up to 68 properties for sale. And now we have a look here. And some of them are identified for partial sale. And of course, they're across all these sites. And some of them, they don't need as much. And I get that. They need to divest land and not have all these expenses. But some of the really painful ones are the Victoria Barracks in Sydney, and then Spectacle Island, HMAS Penguins, RF William, Laverton, Warrendale. A lot of these sites are key heritage sites in the heart of Australia's capitals, where these buildings are worth more than any numeric value that you can even put forward to them. Perhaps I've seen recent estimates of Victoria Barracks going for $200 million. One of the oldest, largest, well-kept heritage sites and buildings in the nation's, not capital per se, but spiritual capital, you could say, in terms of biggest city. And they just want to sell it off so they can put more shoebox apartments. I cannot even begin to tell you how dumb and stupid this sounds. I don't know whoever said this, if they've been dropped on their head multiple times in the last week, but someone please check on them. Because to do this, you must genuinely have ants crawling out your ears and snakes crawling out your nose. Because how could you even think of this? Of course, in the estimate, they've said that selling the defence portfolio, or at least the 68 sites provided, will give back up to $3 billion. But then if you scroll down into your little fine print, you will identify that actually, after selling this, you know how much they get back? Well, they only get back about $1.2 billion. So they lose more than half of it because of all the relocations, the fees, everything else related to selling 3 million hectares of property and, the tens of thousands of people that work at them. Maybe it's going to cost a bit. And of course, in the broader sense of Australian economics, we're just going to come over to recently, there was an insane amount of expenditure by the government. And of course, the Australian government has come out and said that we are not overspending and nothing's going wrong. And then, whoa, guess what happened? The RBA upped the rates. And you know what that means? Oh, it's not expenditure. One dumbass article decided to say, it's the Barmy Army coming to watch the Ashes. How stupid are you? Genuinely, hit your head, and if it's hollow, leave the room because you're a part of this conversation. How dumb are you to even write that article? I don't even care if it's trying to be a little bit nuanced. You're dumb. All right? Plain and simple. I don't even have a joke for you. Leave. And then the Australian government all worried about rate hikes. They don't know what to do. They don't know what to say. They're pushing the blame off of them. You know what they do? They just go, hey, not us. Guess what happens? RBA comes out and says, whoa, buddy, come back. Guess who it is? You. All right? So what are they doing this? This is timely, of course. They decided to sell it a little bit before, but expenditure doesn't happen overnight. The government's been overspending money since COVID times, of course. Blame COVID 5 years ago. Another thing this government seems to do and loves to do is to blame the previous government. And then the previous government before that, what did they do? They blamed that government. It's a hot potato. It wasn't my problem. I wasn't in power. It was the last guy. The last guy fucked the economy. Hey, buddy, you've been elected for like 3 to 4 years. If something's not changing now, it never will. Something's got to give, all right? So, if we're just going to have a look back, there's a rationale about we need AUKUS and we need all these submarine deals. Look, relax, okay? You have 9 submarines versus heritage sites which physically embody the nation of which we live in. These sites aren't just shitty defense sheds and aviation sheds on a random airbase made in the 1980s. These are sites that were hand-built. These stones were hand-cut by people who came here hundreds of years ago and built the nation that we live in. And of course, that's a good thing for everyone to see in our city. But no, you want to sell it off so you can regain not even 40% of the sale price to gain back some of the budget spending. How dumb are you? These are heritage sites. To put it in perspective, it's like if they said, oh, like we're running out of money and the new Sydney Fish Market is, of course, being opened, so we're going to sell some of Sydney Harbour and turn it into a parking lot because we need money. No, you figure it out. What they're doing is going, oh, the Opera House, it's really expensive. It's, it's a detrimental asset. We're going to, I think we're going to get rid of it and just put in a Macca's drive-through. Ha ha ha. Listen here. Are you seeing a bright light? Is there a ringing in your ears? Because there should be. Because to have that take is stupid and unbelievably out of touch for the average Australian. These things are a part of your national identity. If you want people to believe in this country and, of course, fight for the Australian Defence Forces, you have to have these heritage sites, something worth fighting for, cities, things that people love. Why don't we just knock down Centennial Park? Why don't we knock down the Hyde Park War Memorial, while we're at it? Why don't we knock down the Botanical Gardens? Look at that prime waterfront real estate. Why are we wasting it on having a park and, somewhere where people can meet and enjoy themselves when we could have prime condos and apartments? These are the people you're dealing with. You know what they're doing? They're seeing a large crack in the foundation. They're seeing a brick ripped out of the cornerstone of a building. And you know what they're doing? They're walking up and they're just putting a bit of duct tape over the top and going, whoosh. Yeah, that'll be right. Because by the time it comes crashing down, I'll be out of office anyway, so what does it even matter, mate? So, of course, now, recent analysts, a leading business group has come out and basically said, this is from the AFR, and said that the Albanese government needs to cut back $50 billion of spending to return to pre-COVID levels. And that this current expenditure level is going to boost inflation and boost interest rates. And what does everyone in Australia love? It's their house prices. And of course, everyone cares about the housing market here way too much. So of course they care about the interest rates way too much. Now, if this guy wants to get the opposition in power or to change votes from him and Liberal to One Nation or the Greens, he's doing a great job. Because this is what this is going to do. The political sentiment when interest rates are higher and inflation is higher is obviously more volatile. And this guy's doing a great job of continually doing that. So thank you, Jim Chalmers, for making the political sentiment a little bit more murky. Now, of course, there's $135 billion government boom into reshaping the economy, and public sector outlays have increased to about 24.1% in 2018 to 28.5% public sector outlays of our GDP expenditure. Insane. So we're just increasing by about 4%, and we're going to have more budget blowouts in terms of things like we're going to have a deficit of about $42.1 billion, up from last year, driven by growth in areas like the NDIS, as well as pensioners, natural disaster relief, and, I quote, unavoidable pressures. Now, to look at this, cash deficits are forecast around $180 billion over the next 4 to 5 years, 2029-ish kind of area. And then the net debt rate of Australia is supposed to rise at the end of 26 to $650 billion. So we're just getting more in debt. And you know what happens? We're just going to keep spending more. We're not even bringing that much more in, which is a bit of a problem. Now, if you look at if you kind of figure out the maths and you say that, okay, this group is advising the Albanese government that they have to stop spending $50 billion per year. Now, if you kind of work it out, that's around $15 million per day. They've said that Victoria Barracks, at a conservative estimate, is around $200 million. So if you do the maths, for around 2 weeks of over expenditure, you can keep, one of the most important heritage sites in the entire country. Fortnight of expenditure, a site that once you get rid of, you'll never get it back, that holds historical, social, cultural, intrinsic value to the whole community of pretty much the Australian Defence Force. Or you can have 2 weeks of over expenditure. You know what this government's done? This government's gone, hey, let's not put down the expenses card. Let's just spend more, flog it off and get rid of it. All right, and that's all the while increasing the ADF budget, but somehow they don't have time to give out the $100 million of upkeep that these sites give. So these sites, all 68 of them, they say that the upkeep of them is $100 million. Now, if you work that out, that's around 7 to 8 days of over expenditure. So you can have a week to spend all this money, or you can, upkeep them for the rest of the year and, keep all these defense forces bases and not incur all these extra costs when you sell these things. But I don't know. That's just me. Now, of course, a net revenue of $1.8 billion of a $3 billion, maybe more sale. What are we doing? That's less than half a year of this over expenditure. What are we doing? Your over expenditure is $50 billion. It's not even less than half a year, sorry. Your over expenditure of $50 billion, and you are telling me that you cannot afford $1.8 billion worth of, so you're not even scraping back that much. And of course, these things are exactly linked, but it just goes to show the sign of the times that we are in the Australian government. We have an idiot at the helm in both the Labor Party and the Liberal Party. To be honest, what are we doing here? Because the Liberals will probably back it, because at this point they're almost controlled opposition. I mean, you look at them and they just say yes to everything Labor has to put out, and then they wonder why they're losing votes. You're just the uni party. It's kind of insane. Now, of course, a lot of these things are people going, we can bring in more housing. Do you really want to bring in cheap studios, 1, 2, 3 bedrooms? Not 3 bedrooms. Let's not lie. The developers aren't going to do that. They're too greedy. Do we really want to bring in 2-bedroom apartments where people can't even live in their houses? Do we want to desecrate sites that are at the core, at the heart of the Australian Defence Force, and of course, by extension, Australia themselves, for less than a few days of government over expenditure? Think to yourself real hard. Is a few weeks of expenses or over expenditure that these people have done in order to increase rate cuts worth just as much as these sites that you'll never get back? Whoever made this report has rocks in their brains and deserves to step on liquor for the rest of their life. I genuinely cannot describe how you must have custard pouring out of your nostrils on the daily. How could you even think and prepare this? And you want to know the scary part? This got to the mainstream media and got through all those levels of approval. So everyone above and below that guy was like, that's a good idea. We are living in the end times. These people are not real. And every person who's okayed this and said yes to this is just as bad. To understand how bad of a situation we're in, where people are thinking of auctioning off your heritage sites for a few days of expenditure, is insane. This is like the equivalent of pawning your wife's wedding ring in order to get a night in a hotel. You must really want that hotel bad. You must want it.